In today's video, I'm going to give you an amazing zone defense strategy that you can run with your players if you're coaching a very young age group, like under 10, under 11-year-olds. That can work extremely well. But I do want to let you know that I personally believe that everyone should teach man-to-man defense first before they teach zone, because a lot of the concepts when it comes to man-to-man defense will help you and help your players understand zone defenses. So let's get down and let's check out this strategy when it comes to zone defense for younger kids. So while there are some kids who are in that age group who can consistently hit three-point shots, they're very few and far in between. Unless you're talking about my team, I've got about 3 or 4 kids who can consistently hit from 3. But either way, this strategy will work if you're playing against a team that doesn't exactly have too many consistent three-point shooters. And I'm talking consistent as in like over 15 to 20%, because we're talking about 10-year-olds. And that strategy is, of course, nobody goes outside of the three-point line, because you want the zone to be tight. You want everyone to have at least 1 foot inside the key, and that will cut off any drives. In a zone defense, you have zones instead of an actual man that you're guarding. Your zones are overlapping, so that generally speaking, any of those overlapping areas is a double team. Now, of course, offenses that are smart will try to exploit that, but this is just how zone defenses work. Now, how I like to run this, let's say I'm going to put a 5-out offense just to kind of explain the motions of the zone. But if the ball is in this spot, player 1 is going to go out and guard at the three-point line, but not any further. Player 2 is going to move over towards that high post. If they're a smart offensive team and they have a high post player, player 2's job is to cut off the pass, either front face or just try to bother that player. If the ball gets passed down towards the corner, player 4 goes out, does not go past that three-point line. Player 1 moves back in, maybe a bit deeper because he wants to cut off any drives. And player 2 is still sitting here. Player 5 is going to guard that low post, and player 3 is going to guard the middle of that key. This is a very tight zone defense. And the whole main goal, again, is to cut off any drives. For example, player 3 drives towards the basket. This would essentially be a triple team. You don't want any players who are getting into the key. Again, I stress that no offensive players with the ball are allowed in the key. You make sure that they do not have a chance of shooting or dribbling. I actually ran this strategy with my U13 guys this past summer. They are, of course, U14 now, but this strategy worked extremely well against some teams that just didn't have any shooters. We were running for most of the season my unbeatable defense that was kind of a hybrid with a 1-2-2 my assistant coach liked to use. And then we found a lot of success with this 2-3 with teams that were running a 5-out and were not able to shoot a 3. The unbeatable defense that I have down in the description below works extremely well, but it was just a lot more fun being able to triple team teams. But again, make sure to go check out that unbeatable zone defense, because what it does is it doubles the low post and traps the corners. And it's extremely useful, especially with teams that may have taller players. So that triple team is extremely useful, because then player 5 cuts off the drive, player 4 is trailing, trying to kind of swipe away at the ball on the left side, player 1 moves down, tries to swipe away at the ball on the right side, and that player just has nowhere to go. I like to run a very aggressive defense, and fouls don't matter to me. If the ball is up top, straight up top, what I want to see is one of these top players. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, player 1 will go and guard that top player, and player 2 will then guard that high post. We don't want a trap here, because that opens up the opportunity for player 5 to drive down the middle. We want to have that 1-1-3 style, where now we're guarding that ball, but we're also guarding that high post, so that if there's anyone who tries to get into that high post, we can cut that off. Again, the whole main idea is nobody is allowed in the key with the ball. Another strategy that you can run is the 3-2 zone, and technically a 3-2 zone normally looks something like this, where you would have essentially player 5 guarding this area, player 4 guarding this area, player 3 guarding up here, player 1 guarding up here, and player 2 guarding here. And there's different strategies where player 2 and 5 could trap the corners and things like that. But in this strategy, I like to draw it up to explain to players like this, where you've always got 1 foot in the key at least, unless there's a player in your zone that has the ball, in which case you would then, of course, go out towards the 3-point line, but not past the 3-point line, and guard the ball. If the pass or ball goes past over here, player 3 goes out, player 1 gets back down, this time in the high post on this side, again keeping his foot in the key, so that he's always cutting off that drive. If the ball gets passed down to player 3, we're going to have the same idea. However, now, player 3 is going to be guarding more of the middle of the key. Player 1 is still guarding that high post. Player 5 is going to go over and guard that side of the key, and player 2 is going to be kind of playing this side of the key to cut off any of these long lob passes. Now, this 3-2 style of zone is very useful. This one will take a bit more time to learn because, of course, you've got a lot of different movements than you would normally run in a zone. But this cuts off the ability for those players to drive. If that ball gets passed back up, player 3 then recovers, player 2 moves over, player 5 moves over, player 4 moves back over and guards the key. And if there's any players who try to attack that high post, there's always players in the way so that those offensive players cannot get that ball. Now, these are great strategies if you're going up against a team that likes to drive towards the basket, cut towards the basket, and just generally cannot shoot very well at a high percentage. This is a great strategy. Another fantastic strategy is the unbeatable basketball zone defense, which is down in the description, which basically doubles the low post and traps the corners without leaving any spots open. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time.